Thank you. Y'all can go on your smoke break now. Well, good morning. Last time I was here, you called off church. It was in January and iced over, so no such luck today. You're going to have to sit through this. Really? Okay, so we can call it off still. We don't have to go through this. But the truth is, I've been rehearsing that sermon that I was going to give in January for months now. So for about the next hour and a half, buckle in. Are you kidding? Where I come from, of course, it's already past lunch. And I woke up thinking about lunch. So you're guaranteed to get out of here in time to go feed yourself. I do appreciate most of the introduction. And I just want to say the time Friday with your staff and yesterday with some of your leaders. And I'm more encouraged. I've been coming, forever, it feels like. I'm more encouraged about where you are right now and your possibilities. I think you are positioned magnificently for a next great chapter. And it's just a privilege for me to get to be here and declare some of that ahead of time for you and to help accelerate that. And I want to really just remind you, April just led us, the team, in a couple of times this morning already. Who are we? Well, I'm a child of God, but I want to talk about who you are as a group of people that call yourself Hillspring. Because I think a lot of times we need to be reminded about who we are. Because there are all kinds of narratives that people will hand to us. And those narratives sometimes are toxic, sometimes they are limiting, oftentimes they don't quite get it. But I'll tell you, the narrative that I like to tell people about you is that as a group, as Hillspring, you've made a choice not to be church people. We have church people around, but you've made a choice to be something far more magnificent. And it's biblically rooted and it's being lived out in you because who you are is you are kingdom people. Now that phrase may sound a little funny to you because we don't talk about kingdom a lot in America. And I didn't grow up hearing a lot about the kingdom of God when I was in church. I grew up hearing a lot about how the church could be something, but you've decided to be what God had in mind all along for his people to be. And that is a remarkable choice. And I'm telling you corporately what you're doing, and I'll comment on some of that in a little bit. But then individually, I want to send you out today with the fresh thrill of what it means to be kingdom people and the privilege that we have because we are that. So let's just let's go back to the beginning. Let's pick up on the most ancient plot that the kingdom saga. It is. The James Webb Telescope is pushing us back now. 500 years this side of the Big Bang. In case the Big Bang theory holds up under the James Webb Telescope's discoveries. But what we really know is why, beyond what science can ever teach us, we know the why there is. Because science can never tell us in all of its exploration, why is there something and not nothing? There is a something here because God had something, and in fact, the Bible opens up with that magnificent first four words, in the beginning, God. And and what that means is, in the beginning, God was always had a kingdom because there is no God without kingdom. He's the ruler. But it also tells us, and particularly the Hebrew word there actually that's used for God is a plural word. What we know is that God has always lived in family. God has always lived in community. Now, Christians, we call this, the Father, Son, Spirit. It took a while for us to get that. But so what that means is at the heart of the universe, the plot, the big saga it's a love story. God exists in community, this loving community that we call Trinity. And what happens is when there's that much love, it spills out into life. Because God couldn't contain all that love. And so there is creation of a universe that you and I, made in his image, come to be the peak of that creative expression. And the trouble of the saga, though, involves this chapter where another kingdom, I mean, you talk about epic struggle. I mean, if you Lord of the Rings or you know, Star Wars or Harry Potter, what? Anyway, there's this epic struggle at the center of the universe, and it is this kingdom of darkness that wants to extinguish the kingdom of light. And what God has been up to is to recapture everything that hell has stolen. So that when April talks about those young girls that she's talking to, and when you affirm to yourself, you see the enemy of your soul wants to steal that identity from you and tell you you are something less than what God says you are. And then in a corporate sense, the enemy wants to reduce you to being just a church instead of being the dynamo of kingdom that you are called to be. And so this plot actually is eventually moves God to come to the planet himself, wrapped in flesh. You celebrate it, of course, in your nativity. We celebrate it as Christmas. And lives out the kingdom life that he wants us to experience. And his name is Jesus, and it's the Christ who visits the planet to lay claim again to what God said is his, because he made it. And it's really revealed very early of how important this is, because when Jesus taught us to pray, when he gave us the prayer that we pray, our Father who's in heaven, when you get past the worship of God, you have this prayer, and it starts with, your kingdom come. Go ahead and throw that slide up there. I'm sick and tired of you being late. Usually people on the slides push me, like, you've talked about that long enough. They hit the next one. Would you please move on? We got it. I mean, that's the usual. But so when they drag, I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, I had nothing else to say about the previous slide, but I've been making it up for 30 seconds, or 3 minutes. It just seems like forever. Anyway, so what Jesus said, his very first thing that he teaches us to pray shows how important it is. It's the first prayer, first part of the prayer. Your kingdom come, what? On earth. You see, because that's why Jesus came to the earth. Now, I grew up in a tradition that had me focusing more on how we get from earth to heaven. Jesus came to reverse that narrative, say, let's talk about getting heaven to earth. I've come here to show you what that looks like, and I'm inviting you to join me in that prayer. But now it's interesting because not only is it a prayer, but God then gives us a way to participate in that prayer becoming a reality, so he creates a people. That's the next slide. Let's just hurry to there. All right, and so is it time for a break? I'm feeling it. All right, so if y'all hang with it. I mean, this stuff's not that good, but we got to get through it. And you're beginning to think, I worked months on this? You could have done this in the shower this morning. I mean, maybe that's, anyway. So he creates, I can't take it anymore either. You're welcome to follow. Not that I would ever, poke fun at people. Now, this ought to keep the rest of you in your seats. All right, so we are a king. God creates a people, and he decides to give us a very special designation. His kingdom is going to be composed on this earth of priests. Now, I'm not talking about people who wear collars and who have a certain theological bent and all that kind of stuff. He said that every one of us is to live out his call on our life to be priests. Take a look at it. Let's hit the Exodus slide there, because and it's so small back there I can't read it back there, so I'll read it with you up here. Now this is, by the way, background. Moses has gone down. He's brought the Israelites out of slavery. They're now on their journey. This is the Exodus experience. It was at Sinai, the mountain of Sinai, that Moses met God and got his assignment. Can you imagine the thrill and what's in his mind when he gets all those folks back to Sinai and he goes back up to have a meeting with God to say, what's next? So this is the what's next. Then Moses went up from God. The Lord called to him from the mountain and said, this is what you're to say to the descendants of Jacob, what you're to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Here's the point. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you'll be my treasured possession. Is God calling? I don't think there's an update to this. I thought we were on the right stuff. All right. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me, here it is, kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you are to speak to the Israelites. Now, we all have kind of a sense of what priests do. They're kind of in a mediative sense, or they represent God on earth, but they also represent humanity to God. I mean, they're this link. They're this somehow this connection with God that we're reminded of. But God didn't stop here and just give it to ancient Israelites. Let me tell you how important this designation is. He even mentions in the New Testament, as it shows up again, hit it, Kelsey, or whoever's hitting the buttons back there. Peter says, you are a chosen people. See, he picks up the same language, and he says, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, so you can declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Point being, you and I, if we want to be reminded of who you are, and I'm here to remind you of who you are this morning, you're a child of God individually, but together, we are a kingdom of priests. It's our job to priest the world. And this is a privilege, not just an assignment, because there's privilege involved in it. In fact, April's already said it in her prayer, or Steve said it in his prayer. Did you pray? I can't remember. Yeah, I was busy defending my reputation. And somebody said this already this morning. What does it mean then? What is the content? What is it that we have to priest the world? We don't need incense and smoke and altars and stuff like that. There's something we have to offer to the world. And to get that piece, to give the content of what it means to be a kingdom of priests, we go back to Genesis 12. That very first time that God creates a people, and he says, here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to bless you, and you, Hillspring, you use this all the time. I'm going to bless you so you can be a blessing. Blessed to be a blessing. So here's the deal. I'm pretty much through with the message now. But here's what I want to help you think about doing. I want us to practice being the people of God. Not just sing about it, not just get it in our brains, but I would like to invite you to practice being kingdom people this week by being a person of blessing. I would invite you to bless 3 people this week. I mean intentionally. And I don't mean saying like, have a blessed day. I mean, that's kind of gotten to the point. It's like, hope 18-wheeler doesn't run over you. I mean, it just doesn't mean anything. Have a blessed, I'm saying intentionally ask somebody how you might pray for them or how you might bless them. And be willing to tell that story, by the way, to somebody here, because we need to be encouraged. So let me give you something. I've actually asked other groups to do this before. I haven't done it here. I've been easy on you for 12 years. And I can tell you some pretty remarkable stuff happens. Now, corporately, you're already doing this. I get this. You've got the ministries at Eastgate School, And you've got this fifth Sunday offering, which is magnificent. I mean, I think only about $25,000, $30,000, shy of $400,000 that you've already collected through your fifth Sunday offerings. Bob Johnson said, if we're that close, I'm good for the other 25. And and so, I mean, it's way to go, Bob. And so, what you're doing through blessing this community corporately, but I'm talking about we can do something individually as we're living our lives as priests. I'm going to tell you some of the stories that have happened when I've asked me. By the way, personally, I began to do this in my own life a number of years ago, and oftentimes, or I should say occasionally, not every time, but I started out just in the hospitality world that I live in, restaurants, hotels, a waitress, a waiter who, is there to serve me. And it's so easy just to say, and I've said it so many times. I mean, in a minute, I'm going to have a blessing for my food. Is there something I can ask God to bless you about? Can I tell you, I have never had a waitress or waiter throw down their tray. They've never called the ACLU. They've never asked the manager to come throw me out. They've never told me how. And I have had about half of them say, I can't think of anything. Oh, I get that. So I just don't pray for them. I get even. I mean, why bless people that don't want it? I mean, you have to earn it. Like we did. I remember this kid. There was a steakhouse that I've eaten a few, and so TJ, he's just like other waiters, except something drew me to this kid. And the first time I asked him, is there something TJ had? Is there something I can pray for? He said no, and he ran to the kitchen. I think it scared him to death. He thought I was going to bring out snakes or something, and start doing some kind of mumbo jumbo. And so he was in the kitchen for, all right. So for 6 months, I never brought it up again. I ate there and saw him every time. I eat there a lot and, didn't say anything. But there was a Friday, Kathy and I were eating lunch there, and busy. Friday lunch, steakhouse. Kathy goes to the restroom, and TJ shows up at my table. And he's not my waiter this day, but he says, hey, Reggie, I just want to let you know I'm moving. I said, where are you going? Atlanta? I said, he said, is this good for you, TJ? He said, yeah, I got friends there. I said, way to go. I'll pray for you and ask God to bless you there. That was the only other time I mentioned. I slid down my pew to get some chemicals from the tea I was drinking. And I turned, when I paid back attention, I realized TJ is still standing at the end of my table with his head bowed, waiting for me to pray and bless it. I mean, see, TJ is not church broken. He doesn't understand that, when we say to each other, I'll pray for you, that means, we're done now. I mean, I got to go. I mean, anyway. But no, he actually thought I was serious. And so, what are you going to do? So I asked him to kneel. I mean, you got to work for this stuff. It just, of course not. So I prayed for him. I didn't start with the pilgrims and come forward and do all that. I just asked God to bless him. That was it. And and he said, well, thanks, man, and headed off. Now, there are people in my tribe that would have thought that in the prayer I should have gotten the plan of salvation in and then ask him if. A couple of weeks later, I was in there, and I had the chance to tell him the love story that I just told you. He still didn't say, oh, man, what doth prohibit me from being baptized? I mean, he didn't have a dramatic conversion experience. And anyway, I'm a Baptist, so I'm an immersionist. What would I have done anyway? I mean, the salad sink, it wouldn't have counted. thankfully, y'all do it the right way here. And so I'm messing with you. So, but here's the thing about it. You don't have to, you're not a salesman. You're a priest. You're not called to close the deal like we're trying to sell Jesus like soap. We're just trying to be honest about something that fills our life and gives us joy and just asking God to bless somebody. And I think God can figure out how to do it. He's pretty good at this. He's been at it for a while. And the truth is, just because, TJ's moving off my screen doesn't mean he's moving off God's. God's got somebody else in Atlanta ready to run the next leg of the race with TJ in his spiritual journey. This is because we're a kingdom of priests dispersed everywhere. But anyway, I was in Dallas, and I told this crowd, this church, I said, let's practice being people, go bless 3 people this week. And so someone took me very seriously, and it turned out to be very serious. And they set up, when I said, and tell us about it, they set up some TV stations around so people could come in and tell their experiences the next week. And the staff was going through the videos that people had left. And there was a young woman who said, well, I left church last Sunday. When I left church last Sunday, I went over to shopping mall here in North Park, very near the church. He said, when I got back in my car, I wasn't the only person in there. There was someone in the back seat, put a gun to my head and said, drive me to an ATM. And she said, the first thing, I'm just reporting. She said, the first thing that came to my mind is I'd just been told to bless 3 people. And there's a guy in my back seat with a gun to my head. And so she said, you must be hurting really bad to do this. How can I pray for you? They still went to the ATM. The guy still drew out $300. But she was convinced in that video, as she told it, and I'll watch it just to make your hair stand on you, she was convinced it saved her life. To simply say to somebody, you must be hurting, rather than just around. I'm not sure that would have been the first thing that would have come to my mind. Please don't kill me. Please, I've got, she says, you must be hurting. Or I can tell you a story of another. I was at a church where I'd been before, and so I had asked them to practice some months ago, months earlier, practice. And this woman comes up to me in the service. She said, when you were here last time and you said, let's bless 3 people this week, she said, let me tell you my experience. The next day I flew out to Zurich on a business trip and landed. It was raining cats and dogs. And I'm on the bus, and a guy gets on the bus, and he doesn't have an umbrella. He's completely drenched. And she said, God told me, give this man your umbrella. Now, her immediate response was, God, I don't think he wants my umbrella. I mean, it's purple. It doesn't match his outfit. He's going to think that I think he's an idiot for not having an umbrella when it's pouring down rain. She says, I woke up, realized, suddenly it came to me, here I am on the bus arguing with God about whether or not to give away my umbrella and the color of it. So she said, sir, yes, you speak English, some. Take my umbrella. No, I can't do that. No, please take my umbrella. And then he said something else, and finally, and he realized she's so insistent. He finally says, why do you want me to have your umbrella? And she could have said, well, it's raining, duh. I mean, because God told me to give it to you. Well, the guy didn't want to argue with her and God, so he took the umbrella, padded off into the rain. End of story, she thought. That night at her hotel, a business colleague who'd flown over with her in a separate meeting that day downtown said, I had the strangest thing happen today. A guy came into our meeting with a purple umbrella, saying that he had had this encounter on the bus with a woman that said God wanted him to have this umbrella. Her colleague, who happened to be a Jesus follower as well, and a member of the same church, said, I just felt there was something open in him. And after their meeting got through that day, led this person to become a Jesus follower. Now, I'm telling you, it all starts with just being faithful to, hey, take my umbrella. You never know what God's going to do with our simple act of obedience of just being priests in the world. You know, I look forward to you telling stories, or I could tell you how much time. I'll tell you one more story. I'm just making these up anyway, so, I mean, why not just keep rolling, right? I mean, I could do this all day. I won't. One more story. So it's Houston, and it's a Methodist church. And finished, and I gave them the assignment, you know, and the challenge, go bless 3 people this week. So on the way, and so I get a call at the airport before I get on my flight because it's later in the afternoon. And the pastor relayed this story that had just been called into him. One woman in the church on the way to lunch dialed someone she thought, but got a wrong number. And she apologized on her cell phone while she's driving. You can do that in Texas. You can drive and talk, and you can shoot stuff, whatever. You can kill your lunch and have it brought in and eat it. And so, so the woman at their end, said, no, it's the wrong number, sorry. And so the woman driving said, oh, well, I'm sorry. And then she remembered, oh, I've got 3 people I got to bless. Well, I can get this out of the way in a hurry. I'll start now. And she said, oh, I'm coming from church, and we had a speaker today who talked to us about, but is there something I can pray for you about before we hang up? And the woman said, are you kidding? And this lady said, well, no. And she said, I've just been laid off. And my son who lives with me has just been laid off. We are terrified. And we can't survive like this. And we have no idea what to do. So this woman, this church lady that I'm talking about, just began to ask a couple of questions. Well, what did you do? And what does your son like to do? In the space of driving to the restaurant, she'd already come up with 3 people that she knew that she could connect this woman with in the field where this woman had work. She prayed for her, and the woman on the other end of the line says, you can't know what this means. She said, I guess there are no wrong numbers, huh? You just never know. And maybe you don't, I don't know. I'm just being reminded of this very moment. When I flew in here Friday, of course, Helene was making its landfall and just tearing up the world where I live. Most of my neighbors still don't have power. And it's devastating back home. Kathy's there, and she's been keeping me updated. So I'm waiting to get off the plane here Thursday night. I said Friday. I flew in Thursday. I can remember now. And while you're waiting for them to bring the jetway up, and they have somebody that's never done it before, so it takes a while. And they're practicing, and they get close. Can you jump that far? Yeah, I think I can make it. I mean, there comes a point where you should just let me off here. I'll climb down the, But, so we're standing there. We have a few minutes, and the woman that was sitting behind me, the couple that was sitting behind me, I said, well, are y'all home? And They said, yeah, this is home to us. I said, well, this is a great place, been coming for a number of years. Well, where are you from? And I told them South Carolina, and they said, oh my goodness, I know you're. And so I just, talked about what the weather was like that morning when I flew out. It was already deteriorating so badly. So I get off the plane, I'm there, and they happen to walk past me because they're faster than I am. And the woman, about as far from here to there, just turns around and she says, I'm praying for your wife and for your home. Boy, you talk about a blessing. It's that simple. But it's that profound. There are people all over the Tri-Cities that are waking up today going, I don't know if anybody cares about me or not. I don't know if anybody knows my situation or not. I don't know what to do. I don't know. They don't know if God cares. They don't know if the future is going to be better or worse. But let me tell you, Hillspringers, just keep practicing being the people of God. And more frequently, people that wake up in the Tri-Cities going, I don't know if anybody cares for me or not, will know that somebody does. It's you.